Are you on it?
We're having some technical difficulties.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. It's Cheryl, and this is Melissa from RCU. And Ken and I and Kayla tested this earlier this morning, and everything worked fine. And now we went to start it up, and our slideshow seems to be coming up projecting backwards, and Ken's not quite sure why. But we want to get started, and I did send out the slideshow to you, so hopefully you can, you had printed that off so that you could follow along. And Melissa will be talking, so that's the important part, is
Right.
hearing what she has to say. So with that, I'll turn it over to Melissa.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for tuning in and for joining us today. My name is Melissa Jansen, and I work for Royal Credit Union. We're based here in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, but we also serve members in Minnesota as well. And what I do for Royal is I am their community financial education coordinator. And so what that means is I spend my days talking to kids, adults, everybody in between about anything and everything related to finances. Those extra letters after my name just mean that I am a credit union certified financial counselor. And so I can help people individually as well. So today we're going to be talking about identity theft and social media and some tips and tricks on how you can help to protect yourself from identity theft. So go ahead and click to the next slide. And maybe not. Going to the next slide.
Come on, Jen. Not going to the next slide. Okay.
Got it. So give us just one moment while we figure that out. So a little bit while we're kind of figuring that out, I'll go over what we're going to be kind of talking about today. I'll talk about some current.
There it went.
There we go. All right, perfect. So I think a lot of us know somebody who has become a victim of identity theft, or ourselves have been one. A lot of times when I talk to people and I ask them this question, sometimes they say that, oh, I haven't been. And then I ask them, well, have you ever had a transaction on your checking account that wasn't used? And they're like, oh, yes, I have been a victim of identity theft. All right, perfect. So go ahead to the next one for me, please. So like I said, we're going to be talking about some current scams and statistics, how identity theft happens, how you can protect your personal information, tips and tricks on using social media safely, and what to do if you become a victim. So next, please. So what is identity theft? The technical definition is the fraudulent acquisition and use of a person's private identifying information, usually for financial gain. And so what it boils down to is that basically it's somebody using your information to get money in some way, shape, or form. And so next slide, please. Perfect. One thing that sometimes gets confused is fraud is actually different than identity theft. A lot of times we talk about them together, but they're actually two different things. And so fraud is the intentional perversion of truth in order to induce another to part with something of value or to surrender a legal right. And so in real people speak, what that means is somebody lies to you in some way, shape, or form to trick you into giving them something of value. So it could be information or money. So if I pretend that you are a lottery winner and say that to get your earnings, you have to give me $500 first, and you willingly give me that $500, that's fraud. If I go through your mailbox and I steal your social security number or your account information and I create a new credit card, that's considered identity theft. But sometimes fraud can lead to identity theft. So we talk about them both interchangeably, and that's okay. So the biggest thing with identity thieves, it is one of the fastest growing crimes that is out there. Unfortunately, only about 5% of identity thieves are caught. Identity thieves are extremely good at what they do. They're constantly evolving and changing their strategies. And so when we kind of catch up with one thing, they kind of start doing something else. And so it's really challenging. One of the things that I'd always like to think about is what if they use their powers for good? You know, it would be a lot better. But the reason that they are so successful is because they are actually social engineers and they play off people's emotions. And so a lot of times they will tap on one emotion, and since we feel that emotion so strongly, it will make us miss the red flags that we should have seen where this isn't right. Identity thieves thrive on getting you to act quickly before you have the time to process the information. And so we'll kind of talk about a couple of different scams that are out there that are really common, and just kind of think about what emotions they play off of and which red flags there you could miss with those ones. So we'll go ahead to the next one. This we won't watch, but there is actually a really funny video if you want to go online and look it up. One of our local police officers actually got a phone call from a telephone scammer pretending to be the IRS. The IRS does not call you, so just know that. But if you want to watch it, it's funny. The video says that the police are going to come and arrest them. So we'll go to the next one. So these are some of the most common scams that we have nationwide, even in our area here in Wisconsin, but they happen all over the place. So one of the ones that is really prevalent is the grandparent scam. So how the grandparent scam works is somebody calls and pretends to be that person's grandchild. So they might call and say, "Hey grandma, it's your favorite grandson." And that person might prompt, "Oh, Billy?" And they say that they're in some sort of trouble and that they need money wired to them. One of the things that is really dangerous about this grandparent scam is that a lot of these scammers are using information that they find on social media to make this scam work. So for example, if I have my Facebook and it is public, you could see on my Facebook that I'm Melissa and I'm in a relationship with Brandon, all right? And maybe I post a picture of myself visiting my grandma for her 85th birthday party at the Eastridge Estates Assisted Living Facility. They can make the connection with last names, possibly, who my grandma might be. And so then they can call up my grandmother and say, "Hey, grandma, it's Melissa," because they can see my name on Facebook. "I'm with Brandon and we're traveling." They know my boyfriend's name because it says "in a relationship with Brandon" on Facebook. "And my car broke down. I need you to send $500, but don't tell mom because she'll be really mad." And so, true story, I just did a presentation at Eastridge Estates and had a conversation with a woman who did fraudulently send $5,000 to somebody because she thought that her grandson was incarcerated. And so it's things like accidents, incarceration, things like that. So she wired the money. So if you think about the emotions that you're playing off of in that, obviously you're playing off of love, all right, because you love your grandchildren. They're playing off of fear, because being incarcerated, being broken down on the side of the road are things that can be very scary for people. And so that's one that is out there. Elder financial abuse is one of the fastest growing areas of it, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a second. But a lot of elderly people fall victim to phone scams because they're the ones that are available more often to answer the phone. Sometimes they can't hear as well, and sometimes they just don't process things as quickly. And so if you do have older family members or things like that, it's really important to have these types of conversations with them and make them aware of what's going on out there. So the other one that I talked about that was related in the video is the IRS scam. They'll say that you have past due taxes or things like that. The IRS is never going to call you. They will send you a letter. There's a lot of fake check scams that go on out there. And so this actually happened to me. I had a piece of furniture for sale on Craigslist. And I had listed my address on the Craigslist ad. Now, it's not necessarily a good idea to put your address out there. You should wait until you have the private message, but this was a while ago, and before I had really kind of studied all of this. And so I got a message, and somebody said that they were going to send me a check for it. And even before I responded and said, no, like I'm not going to take a mail check for it, they must have already sent the check because the check showed up at my house. And the check was written out for more than the furniture was worth. And so this is a common scam that they'll do. They'll go and they'll get a money order and they'll say, oh, I made a mistake. I told them to make it out for $50 and they made it out for $500. And so why don't you just take 100 of it? I'll give you an extra $50 for your time and then give me the other 400 back. And you might think, sweet, good deal. I just scored an extra $50 and this guy's thinking sweet because he's not out $500. But what people don't realize is that a check is like an IOU, all right? And so while your financial institution might accept it, it might take a few days for that financial institution to verify whether or not that check is actually valid. And if it comes back that that check is not valid, they're going to take that money away from you, and you're going to be out that money. And so that's something that we're seeing a lot of at the credit union. If you're knowingly cashing bad checks, that's a very big offense, and so that's something that you don't want to be doing as well. So if you have a friend that says, hey, I think this is going to work really great, yeah, probably not. Medicare scams, again, just saying that you're past due on bills or that you need to pay something for membership, those types of things. Investments, a lot of different investments are out there where it says you could get rich doing this. Another one that isn't listed up there is there's a lot of loans that are frauds out there. So it'll be something, sometimes they're loans that you're maybe typing into Google and you look and you see, oh, this is somebody that wants to lend me some money. It could be kind of a website lead, but other times people have been approached and offered loans that aren't actually real loans. So like refinancing options that are not correct. Work at home scams, lotteries, you have won. A lot of times the lotteries will say, you have won, but you need to pay the taxes up front, so please send this and we'll send you the winnings. Again, there's your emotion and your red flags, because really excited, you won the lottery, you're thinking about all the ways that you're going to spend the money, you might miss the red flags. Romantic interest, I mean, we see this a lot on TV shows and things like that. We all kind of wonder how people can continue to fall for this, you know, bride overseas that loves you and things like that. But it is one of the biggest scams that is out there, especially for our senior citizens, because, you know, they are lonely a lot of the time and they are looking for those relationships and they do have good intentions. And sometimes it's not even necessarily a romantic relationship. We have seen somebody who thought that they were helping this young woman who had cancer. And so they were giving her money for medical bills and things like that, and she did not have any type of terminal illness at all, and she was just scamming this person. One that is huge is disaster relief. A lot of the times there will be phone calls, especially around when we had all of those terrible hurricanes, where people will start calling and pretending to solicit money for the charity, but that money isn't actually going to the charity. One of the things that in our area was a very big tragedy, but also a celebration, is there was a young girl that was kidnapped, and then luckily she was returned. Her name was Jamie Kloss. There are a lot of people that did false Jamie Kloss fundraisers, and so if you do want to make that positive impact in your community, just make sure that you are doing it directly through the source. And so, you know, go directly to it, find out what it is, and donate directly to their website. Don't just take any phone call that does it. I was going to add one thing, but it left me. It'll come back. So we'll go ahead to the next one. So this was a new release just from 2017 data, and I thought it was pretty interesting. So there's a website. It's called the IC3.gov. So it's the Internet Crime Complaint Center is what it stands for. And so the Internet Crime Complaint Center released their 2017 findings for the crimes that were reported. And so it was over $1.4 billion of crimes that were scammed out there. And these were kind of the biggest ones. So business and email compromises were the highest here, but confidence and fraud and romance scams were second there. So people thinking that they were having some sort of relationship with somebody and trusting somebody else was another big one. But these are some of the other things, non-payment, non-delivery. You pay for something and it doesn't actually come. Or they pay you you offer them a service and they never pay you for what you sent them. So corporate data breaches, real estate, investments, advance fees, so paying something up front to get more money later. We kind of talked about that. And then just general identity theft and credit card fraud, where they're making those fake accounts. So it is a big problem, and it continues to grow, unfortunately, year after year. So one thing that I did want to just mention a little bit, because it's not an illegal form of identity theft, it's not an illegal scam, but one of the things that people sometimes get themselves into a lot of trouble with are kind of those get-rich-quick or those different businesses that you can start up and be your own boss. And so, can you think of an example of one that kind of works like this in the room? Name a company. You don't want to name it?
Oh, what's that? That's been around for a long time.
You get a pink Cadillac.
Yeah, Mary
Kay, right? Yeah, so Mary Kay, and it's not bad. I mean, it is something that works for some people. Some people, if they really want to do it, but how it works is the more people you get to sign up, the better off you are and the more you make. And so the problem with that is people get excited because there are some people that are dedicated and can get up to those levels and get that big Cadillac, but the majority of people are the people down here that invest a ton of money in products that they're never going to be able to sell. We've seen people with tens of thousands of dollars in Ruggiero products and things like that they're never going to be able to sell and regain what they have paid for it. And so it's something, while it's not illegal, it's something that you should be aware of. And so, especially with, since this is tying into social media with everybody going on Facebook Live and doing their live shows and their live makeup tutorials and all of that, it's just something to keep in the back of your mind. So what information or identity is actually seeking? So any of this information they can do stuff with, but the one that they will do the most damage with is your social security number. So you want to make sure that above all, you're keeping that social security number safe. So we'll go to the next one. So how do they get your information? A lot of the time, identity thieves get your information in traditional ways that people don't think of. Everybody thinks that it's all happening online or it's all happening digitally, but a lot of times it happens from everyday things. So throwing out your trash, all right? I get a pre-approved credit card offer in the mail. I just, instead of shredding that, I throw that in the recycling bin. Somebody comes by, picks that on up out of the recycling bin, changes the address. Now they've got a credit card in my name sent to their address. It's that simple. Mailbox shopping. We put up that red flag on the mailbox, and that's like sending a message out that there's something in there. And so if I write out my check to Excel Energy, on the bottom of my check, it has my routing number and my account number. You can set up a PayPal account with just that information and drain all of my funds. And so if you do have those bills that you're paying, it's best to put them in a secured mailbox. So one of the ones that close that people can't get into, or if you have a place of business that has that option, bring them in to work with you rather than just having them sit out there with a big red beacon on them. We already chatted about phone scams. Those are very, very common. I just got a phone call last week that I saved the recording from. It was from Malaysia, was what it said when it showed up. And it was a robocaller. And so that's something that is also new. But it was a robocall recording, and it said that my social security number had been suspended. And so press 1 for more information. So I know that you can't suspend a social security number, so that just made me giggle. But think about somebody else. Think about maybe an elderly person or a young person. A lot of young people fall victims to identity theft too. Teenagers, young adults, because they don't know. And so that would be something that would be really scary. So they press 1. And so those robo-dialers are becoming more and more common because they can just go through computer algorithms to generate numbers, and then eventually they'll hit. And if they get that person to hit 1, well, that's when it connects them with a real life person sitting somewhere else, and that's where they get that information. And so the best thing to do if you are getting a phone call that you don't recognize, don't answer it. If it's somebody that you know, they'll leave a message. If you do answer it, and even if it's, somebody who wants to play along and say, oh, I know this is a scam or things like that, what you've done is you've just told them that that's a working number. And they're going to share that working number with more people. And you're going to start getting more and more calls. So best thing that you can do is just not to answer it. And then the last one is most identity theft unfortunately happens from people that we know. Unfortunately, it's friends and family members, especially when we're talking about elderly people. A lot of times it's their own family members that are using them financially. And so if you have a family member that you think might be being financially abused by somebody, a great resource is your Aging and Disability Resource Centers. They have really great information. They can help you to follow up with that. There was just a report released about suspicious activity reports, so they're called SARS in our banking world. Anytime that something comes in that just doesn't kind of seem right, we legally have to file a suspicious activity report to the federal government. And so there was just a report released about the increase in suspicious activity reports in elders. So it's something to keep in mind. So another thing is they have skimmers out there. You can see they get put right over the top of either ATM machines or gas stations. Look exactly the same. The machine is still going to function the exact same as it previously did, but what it's going to do is it's going to make a copy of your information on that, and then they can take that and get a new card printed. And so we had a rash of these a while ago in Wisconsin up and down Highway 94, and so it's something that they're trying to combat with those little chips that they have in cards, and so eventually they're hoping that it's not going to be stored in that, the information won't be stored in the black bar eventually, they'll all be in that chip, which is harder for people to use, but there has been some time given to these businesses to make that conversion. So if you notice, some of the gas stations still don't have the chip readers yet in our area. That's because if you think about it, that's a big cost for a small business to get all new pumps, all new readers, and all of that. So they've been trying to kind of delay that a little bit to make it more sustainable for their business. And we have seen some great success with this. We have seen that point of purchase, so people actually using a card at a place of business, that type of fraud has gone down. But at the same time that type of fraud has gone down, card not present fraud, so online fraud and those things, has gone up. So it's one of those things where, we're making these changes, but they're evolving right along with us. So it's something we all need to constantly have in the back of our mind just to be mindful of. Other methods, if you're logging and sharing information on public Wi-Fi, that could be it. They could hack into your computers. We've talked a lot about data breaches in the news, where your information can be compromised because they hack into a business that you've done business with, and social media. So if that happens and you do get a notification, usually they'll send you a letter that says, I, for example, got one from Target that said that, your information might have been compromised in this data breach. And so what you can do in that circumstance is you can put a fraud alert on your credit report, and that'll just kind of put a red flag on there for 90 days. So if anybody's trying to get new credit, it'll make them ask some extra questions. So go to the next one. So with that being said, make sure you are checking your credit report in the materials that I sent out. I sent information on how you can do that. It's free. It does not lower your credit score if you're checking it yourself. You can check it from all three of the different institutions that do credit reporting. And so the big thing is you want to make sure that you're going to annualcreditreport.com. There's a million different websites out there like Free Credit Report Annually or Credit Report Now, and those aren't the ones that are authorized by federal law. Some of them are just places that are trying to scam you, that are trying to charge you money, and they're just going to charge you money. But other ones are spook websites where they're trying to get you to enter in your social security number and get that information from you, and people are doing it without thinking. And so you want to make sure that it's annualcreditreport.com. So you're going to go in there. It's really easy. It's 3 steps. You kind of enter in personal information, and then you click whichever ones you want to receive. You could get all of them at once. I'd suggest that if you haven't checked them in a while, because then you can make sure that there's not something going on Equifax that's not showing up on TransUnion, because they are different businesses. The other thing that you could do is you could space it out. So if you have checked them, you could maybe do it quarterly, look at Experian in April, TransUnion or Equifax in January, TransUnion in April, and Experian in November if you wanted to. So one last note that I have about these credit reporting agencies is that they are businesses. And one of the ways that they generate income is by offering you your information to businesses that have products and services that you might be interested in. So the first time that I pulled my credit report, I looked at the bottom of it and I saw something for Chase Freedom. And I was like, why is Chase Freedom on there? I've never applied for a Chase Freedom card in my life. And it was under this section because, just to back up, your credit report is going to have kind of 4 different parts to it. It's going to have your personal information. It's going to have public records, so that's if I filed for bankruptcy, if I've got a tax lien, or if I've been taking a small claims court, not that I got a speeding ticket. Then it's going to have my payment history, so it'll have all the different lines of credit that I've had. Have I paid them on time? Are they past due? And then it'll have inquiries. So who have I been applying for credit for? And so those are what we call hard pulls when you're actually applying to get more credit. But soft pulls are things that don't affect your credit score. So things like you look at it, you check it, ongoing monitoring, because a lot of times if I get a car loan and they offer me a 2% interest rate, in that underwriting, it says that I have to keep my credit score good, otherwise they can increase that interest rate. So I could see that, oh yeah, Royal Credit Union checked it to make sure that I was still meeting the agreements with my car loan. But then under there was under that same area, I saw that Chase Freedom, and I was like, I have no affiliation with Chase Freedom. Well, what these organizations can do is, let's say I'm Discover Card, and I have a brand new pink, sparkly credit card that I think females ages 25 to 35 are going to absolutely love. I can go to Equifax and I can say, hey Equifax, I want a list of 100,000 females who have a credit score between 700 and 800 in the ages of 25 to 35, because I think they're going to love my pink credit card. And they'll say, sure, pay me this amount of money, and they can send them my address, all of my information. And so that's why if you're getting those pre-approved credit card offers in the mail, they have seen your credit report. You are pre-approved. And so in your folders, there's the option to opt out of that and to make it so that they don't share that information. And so I recommend that you do it for 2 reasons. I already talked about, somebody could get a hold of that and change it. But then also it's something where people could get themselves in trouble. Because if my car just broke down and I don't know how I'm going to make ends meet, and all of a sudden I open up the mailbox and there's this magic Discover card, I'm going to be like, hallelujah, and not even worry about the fact that they're charging me 30% interest rate and that it's not the best solution for my problem. So definitely consider opting out of those. Another thing that you can do is you can put a credit freeze on your credit report. That's different than a fraud alert. And so they now offer this for free. Before, you used to have to pay $10 to freeze it and $10 to unfreeze it. But as you all probably heard, one of these lovely credit reporting agencies leaked half of America's personal information. And so they had one job, keep it safe, and they didn't do it. But so they have, as a little tiny apology, they have waived that fee. So you can put a freeze on your credit report. You can go to Annual Credit Report, there's instructions, or you can go to any of the credit reporting agencies' websites, and there's instructions on how to do that. And basically what it is it's an extra step. And so they'll give you a secret PIN number, and that PIN number is needed to do any new opening of things. And so if you're in a position where you're probably not going to apply for a new credit card anytime soon or get out a new loan or anything like that, I'd recommend doing it. It's a little bit of it's not a hassle, but it's extra steps to get it taken off. So if you're thinking you might be getting some more credit, maybe wait a little bit. But if you're good, put it on there. It's free. It's an extra step. It helps to protect you. So we won't talk about this too much, so we can keep going. But phishing is just the emails. So when they're emailing you and asking for additional information, so you can click. That increased from 2015 to 2016, 65%. I'm sure it's up even higher than that now. I have to look. I haven't been able to find a new report specifically on phishing. So one thing that is really getting common now is what we call spear phishing. And so spear phishing is where they're taking information that you know or you might relate to get you to be more tricked. Because people are starting to catch on with the general message emails, and they're kind of starting to catch on to that, and so those aren't being as successful. And so how a spear phishing attack works is they use social media networks or other websites to find out people's names. So for example, in my situation, my boss's name is Jennifer McHugh. All right, you could go on Royal Credit Union, and I'm sure you could do some digging, and you could find out that an article that links Jen and I together. And so what they do is they create a fake email address that would make me think that it was coming from Jennifer McHugh. It could even be something that kind of spoofs, so it looks almost exactly like her email, but if I hover over it, it could be something different, or maybe it's, at Royal, it's Jen.McHugh, maybe it'd be J McHugh or something like that I would see. So then they send that to an employee. It gets through the spam filter. Sometimes they're good at what they do, so they can break past their spam filter. And then it gets to me, and I open it because I think that it's my boss contacting me. And I either click on a link or I send them information. A lot of times in the HR world, this is something to be really careful of because they'll do things where they have asked for people to send their employee records, and they've sent these social security numbers of all of their employees to people. And so it's something to be aware of. So if you get it, even if it's a message that looks legit, but it just doesn't sound like something that your supervisor or somebody that you work with would ever ask you to do, follow your gut instinct and pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, is this really you? Did you really ask for this? Because a lot of times it might not be. Okay. Next one, they have this lovely stuff called ransomware where they can lock up your computers and they can threaten to delete everything in your system if you don't pay them. And so this was just an example of one where they were trying to get that person to pay in Bitcoin. And so it's just something to be very careful of what you're clicking and doing. So this is just a little one to show you some different things. So a lot of times you might get things about your account being deactivated. That's a really common scam. So you can look for clues, spelling errors, log in your account. That's bad English. A lot of these come from overseas. And so if there's bad grammar, like I said, this is not quite the right email address. If you hover over the link, you can see that it's not taking you to PayPal itself. And so just looking for those clues and trusting your gut. And like I said, if it doesn't seem right, there's phone numbers on the actual PayPal website. Call in, try to talk to a human. If you are ever entering personal information into a website like payment information, make sure that it has the HTTPS after it. That means that it's a secure website. You don't need to have the HTTPS for every website. If I'm just looking for, a recipe for chicken dinner tonight, I don't need to have that because I'm not putting in any personal information. But any information that you're entering, you want to make sure that it has that. That's just shows that it is a secure website. So how to spot these and what farming is. So phishing is when they try to get you to send them information. Farming is where they direct you to a website that is fake and you put in your personal information in that website. I saw a image of it. Wish I would have gotten it sent to me, but it was at a conference of a website that spoofed the Walmart website. It looked so much like the Walmart website, but there were little clues that you could pick up that it wasn't actually Walmart. And so this person was on there thinking that they were ordering all of these products from Walmart, and they weren't. They were just giving their credit card information. And so, but with the emails, you know, if it uses a generic greeting, if it refers to an urgent problem, because it's trying to get on that emotions, asking for personal information, tugging at the heartstrings, says your account will be shut down, urges you to click the link, and contains spelling errors. Those are kind of your biggest red flags for those. And so what should you do for the next one? Just think about it. If you didn't sign up for it, if it doesn't seem like it's something that you're expecting, then chances are it's not what it seems. Double check email addresses, look for clues, don't click on it, don't reply to it, because again, you're just telling them that that's a working email. Just, if you see it, delete it, and then go in your deleted folder and delete it again there. Best thing is if you can already tell from the subject line that it's not right, just get rid of it. So, you can click through this again. So I want you to think of passwords that you use, and then think of your Facebook page or your Instagram page or your Snapchat, and then think of these things here. All right, does your password contain any of this information? All right, that I could probably easily find on your Facebook page? Possibly. All right. Even if your password itself doesn't, think about those security questions that we get asked. You know, what was your high school mascot? All right, I went to North High School. It'd be very easy if I have that on my Facebook to Google North High School, find out that they are the Huskies, and type that in. Security question 1, already done. All right, what's your mom's maiden name? Easy to find on Facebook. All right. The other thing that is really a big problem is there's all of those cute little pictures that people are posting where it's like, find out your pirate name. Just enter the first month of your birthday is, you know, I'm 80, and all of those different things. Those aren't just fun little quizzes. Those are people trying to get your information. If they're saying, you know, what was the first car that you drove, and people think, oh, it's sentimental, let's go down this journey of all the different cars that we've had. No, that's a common security question. They're trying to get information from people about it. And so do not comment on those. So next one. You know, it's okay for us to be social and to use our social media, but be responsible. A lot of us add a ton of people that we don't actually talk to. And we don't know what those people are doing or why they're on there or what could happen with that. And so kind of my rule of thumb when adding people to my social media is, if I saw you in the grocery store, would I stop and say hi to you? If I wouldn't stop and say hi to you, then there's no reason you need to know my business and what's going on with me and my family. And so I've done cleanups, and it's frustrating sometimes because I feel like Facebook and some of the other social media makes it harder and harder for us to do friend cleanups, but it is something that's worth the effort. Double checking your settings, making sure you know what's public. Don't check in to places because that tells people where you are, especially if you're going on vacation. Wait until you're back until you post those pictures, because that's just a big red flag that nobody's at your house. And make sure you know what your app permissions are. What things are you sharing with your apps? So for example, there's a lot of money management apps that are out there. But the thing is, they can be useful tools, okay? But they don't have the same restrictions that a bank or a credit union would have to keep your information safe. So if I let Credit Karma have access to my accounts, there's nothing that says that Credit Karma has to keep that information safe. Also, the reason why all of those apps are free is because you're the product. They're going to be monitoring what you're purchasing, sharing that information with other people who have products that they want to sell to you. And so I just am really weary about what apps I use and actually looking at that fine print before you just click accept. So last thing that we're going to kind of close with here is our passwords. So a lot of times our passwords are, you know, I love Ginger. My dog was Ginger. Viking 123. Art is cool 72. Okay, that's kind of what we do. But if you do a passphrase, it is so much more effective. So instead of saying I love Ginger, I think about 4 things that Ginger does. Fetch, bark, drew away, exclamation point. All right. For a bike, pedal, spokes, wheels, 3 parts of the bike. Or canvas, brush, paint. I have to change my password at work pretty regularly. And so what I do is I always do 3 things that I can see from my desk. So if I was here, I might do board, tree, sign, and just switch those around. They are so, and we'll see in the next slide how much better they work. And so this I got from our IT department. They actually did a scan of passwords that people were using at Royal Credit Union and put them up against a computer hacking system to see how long it would take these to get busted. Royal 2015 took 12 minutes before they were able to get in. Roger Jr. 1, 35 minutes. Summer 14, about 3 hours. Pedal, spokes, wheels, it was estimated that it would take 189 centuries. Canvas, brush, paint, 2009. Fetch, bark, drew away, over 10,000 centuries for it to work. And so while it is tedious and I get mad because I sometimes type too quickly and I have to re-enter it and I've gotten locked out because of it before, I go back to this and think about how much more secure it really is. So, perfect. So big signs that you might be a victim of identity theft. The biggest thing that you can do is make sure you're checking your bank statements. Sometimes it'll come across as just a small fee at first, maybe even 50 cents, maybe $1. And they'll just see if that clears. That tells them that it's a real account, and then they'll come back in for more. For me, I actually had somebody set up a $20 recurring payment. And I didn't even think about it because my husband signs up for all sorts of silly stuff all the time. And I was like, I don't know what he's subscribed to now. But then I looked at it, and it had a website, and then I, in the description of it, and I went to the website, and it said that it was for recipes. And my husband he signs up for silly stuff, but he's not going to sign up to pay $20 for 5 recipes a month. And then I was curious, and I shouldn't have done this, but I did because I wasn't thinking. I called the phone number that also showed up in the description, and they said, "Oh yes, we can get rid of that charge for you. We just need your bank account information." You know, they wanted me to give them even more information than they already had, and so I ended up having to close our account and get new cards and things like that. So it was a little bit of a pain, but I knew that that information was out there, it was compromised, and so I needed to do something about it. If you're denied medical services, unfortunately, in the society that we live in right now, people can't afford the health care. And so people are going in and pretending to be other people to be able to use their insurance to get medical services. And another one is people filing false tax returns to try to get your refund before you. So big tip with that is file your taxes as soon as possible. And then, like I said, if you've been notified that you were part of the data breach, that is a big one to watch out for. And so if you are a victim of identity theft, don't panic, don't feel bad. My mom, we still don't know exactly what happened, but she went in to get money out of the bank and found out that somebody had withdrawn $2,500 from PayPal. And she doesn't use PayPal, my dad doesn't use PayPal, but it happened. And so when she called me afterwards, she was saying that she was going to cut up all her credit cards and she was only going to pay cash and, all of that. It's not realistic for us to do that. And so don't feel bad, but just act as quickly as you can to get things resolved. Make sure you're monitoring those accounts. Like I said, you should place a fraud alert on your credit report. You can contact the identity theft hotline or go to their website. They have all sorts of good information about next steps. If it's something that happened online, you can go to the IC3 website that I talked about earlier and report it there. You want to make sure that you contact your financial institution so they know, so they can help you to keep an eye out for it. They'll put notes in your files. And then the last one is I would also file a police report. A lot of people don't do this, but it's something that can really help you. So for an example, that woman that I talked to at the assisted living home who fell for the grandparent scam, she filed a police report. And it was a year or so later but they ended up catching that person and she got her money back because she had that police report on file. And so it's always a good idea to do that. And you're protecting other people at the same time you do that. So, perfect. So the biggest things for you to take away from this is, make sure you're keeping your personal information safe. Shred those documents. Don't share. Have strong passwords. Take the necessary prevention steps. But more than anything, make sure you're monitoring your accounts and your credit reports. Looking for suspicious activity, and then trust your instincts. Listen to those red flags. Don't act too quickly. And if you do act in a way where you kind of think, maybe I shouldn't have done that, follow up with it and make sure, because the sooner you can catch this, the better. So, perfect. Questions and things that we have here? No, we can't really take questions off the online, can we? Or is there a chat function?
There is a chat function, but nobody sent anything in.
Okay.
So.
Well, thank you so much. I hope it was helpful.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yes, absolutely.
And your follow-up information is there if anybody has
Absolutely.
any questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everybody who watched, sorry for the technical difficulties that we had, and hopefully we'll get this all straightened out before the next one.
Absolutely.
Because we're hoping that this will be the way to go in the future. So
Yeah.
thank you all. Have
Awesome.
a good day.
Thank you.